The studio was electric, buzzing with the anticipation of what was about to unfold. The cameras were rolling, the lights were blinding, and in the center of it all sat former President Donald Trump, his signature scowl firmly in place. Across from him was a well-known liberal reporter, James Carter, a man notorious for his aggressive questioning and ambush-style interviews. The tension had been building throughout the segment. Trump, who had faced countless attacks from the media over the years, was used to handling tough questions. But there was something different about tonight. Carter had been circling, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. "Mr. Trump," Carter began, leaning forward with a smirk. "You've always projected yourself as a strong, decisive leader, but there's something the American people deserve to know. Something about your marriage." Trump narrowed his eyes. "Excuse me?" Carter flipped through his notes dramatically, as if savoring the moment. "There have been, well, let's just say, troubling reports about you and Melania, about her living separately, about the real state of your marriage." The room went silent. Even the crew members who had seen it all were holding their breath. Trump's face hardened, but there was a flicker of something else. Annoyance, maybe even anger. "That's fake news," Trump shot back immediately. "It's what you people do. You can't talk about my policies because they were successful. You can't attack my record because it's better than Biden's. So what do? You go after my family. It's disgusting." Carter chuckled, shaking his head. "Fake news? You know, Mr. Trump, that line is getting old. We have sources. We have reports. Melania has been noticeably absent from your rallies, your events. The American people want answers." Trump leaned forward, his hands gripping the desk. "The American people care about the economy. They care about the border. They care about crime in Democrat-run cities. They don't care about some gossip. Rag nonsense you're peddling." Carter wasn't done. He reached under the desk, pulling out a printed report. "Then explain this. This document, obtained by reputable sources, suggests Melania has been staying in a separate residence for months. Can you deny that?" Trump's expression shifted. His jaw clenched, and for the first time in the interview, there was a pause. The silence stretched for just a second too long. Carter seized on it. "So is it true? Is your marriage a lie?" That was it. Trump's face turned red as he slammed his palm on the desk. "You're a disgrace to journalism. You don't care about the truth, you just want to attack me because you're scared. You and your corrupt friends in the media are terrified that I'm coming back." Carter smirked, knowing he had struck a nerve. Terrified? Or just interested in the truth? Maybe the voters deserve to know the real Donald Trump, the man behind the MAGA hat. Trump pointed a finger at him, his voice rising. "The real Donald Trump? Let me tell you something. The real Donald Trump rebuilt the economy. The real Donald Trump secured the border. The real Donald Trump made America energy independent." "And what have you done? Lied for a living." Carter raised an eyebrow. "So you're dodging the question?" Trump shook his head. "I'm exposing the media for what it is, a joke, a propaganda machine. My marriage isn't your business. My marriage isn't America's business. What's America's business? Is getting rid of the corrupt, incompetent leadership we have now." Carter, still smirking, leaned back in his chair. "Sounds like someone's deflecting." Trump scoffed, throwing his hands up. "I don't have time for this nonsense. You can keep playing your little games, but the American people see right through you." Carter glanced at the camera, as if addressing the audience directly. "There you have it, folks. Donald Trump, unable to answer a simple question about his marriage. What is he hiding?" Trump stood up abruptly, tearing off his microphone. "I'm done with this clown show." With that, he stormed off the set, leaving Carter sitting there, victorious in his own mind. But as the cameras kept rolling, the reaction from the audience wasn't what Carter expected. Trump supporters were already flooding social media, calling it another example of media bias. The hashtag #MCurFakeNews was trending within minutes. The liberal media thought they had won, but in reality, they had just given Trump another moment to rally his base. Backstage, Trump shook his head, turning to an aide. "These people never learn, do they?" The aide chuckled. "No, sir, and that's why they keep losing." Trump exhaled sharply, his jaw still tight with frustration. He had faced ambushes before, but this one had felt particularly personal. He had expected the usual attacks, his policies, his campaign, his stance on immigration, but dragging his marriage into the spotlight? That was a low blow, even by media standards. As he walked through the back hallway of the studio, he could hear the muffled voices of the panelists still discussing the interview on air. They were dissecting his reaction, spinning narratives, already turning it into a breaking news story. Former President Trump storms out of interview after refusing to answer marriage questions. Melania's absence raises new concerns about Trump's personal life. Trump unhinged, explosive outburst leaves reporters stunned. He clenched his fists, resisting the urge to turn back and set them straight. That was their game. They baited, they twisted, they framed him as unstable while ignoring the real issues Americans cared about. A campaign aide, Mark Reynolds, rushed up to him, phone in hand. "Sir, social media's exploding. The clip's going viral, but honestly, it's playing in your favor." Trump stopped, glancing at him. "How?" Mark smirked. "Your base sees right through it. They're calling Carter a sleazeball. Your fake news and Trump won again are trending. Even some independents are saying it was a cheap shot." Trump huffed a small laugh, shaking his head. The media never learns. Mark nodded. "No, sir, they don't, but you do. We can flip this." Trump crossed his arms. "How?" "We hit back. Hard. You do an immediate rally, address the real issues, and expose this whole thing for what it is. A desperate attempt to distract from Biden's failures." Trump nodded slowly, his mind already working. "Where's the next rally scheduled?" "Michigan, 3 days from now." "Move it up. Tomorrow." Mark's eyes widened. "Tomorrow? Sir, we'd have to—" Trump cut him off. "Make it happen." Mark hesitated for only a moment before nodding. "Yes, sir." By the time Trump reached his private exit, his phone was buzzing with messages from allies and advisors. Some were furious at Carter's stunt, others were already working on counterattacks. But the one message that caught his attention was from an unexpected name, Melania. It was brief, just 2 words. "Ignore them." He smirked, pocketing his phone. If they thought they could rattle him, they were dead wrong. The next night, the Michigan rally was packed. Tens of thousands had gathered, their MAGA hats and American flags waving proudly under the stadium lights. The energy was electric, the chants deafening. "USA! USA! USA!" Trump took the stage, the roar of the crowd drowning out everything else. He soaked it in for a moment before raising a hand, quieting them just enough to speak. "Well, folks, looks like the fake news is at it again." Boos erupted from the audience, followed by chants of "CNN sucks." Trump grinned. "You saw it. You all saw it. They don't want to talk about the border. They don't want to talk about inflation. They don't want to talk about crime. No, they want to talk about my marriage." Laughter mixed with more boos. Trump shook his head. "Can you believe it? These people are obsessed. But let me tell you something, and listen closely. I don't care what they say. I don't care what they make up. The only thing I care about is making America great again." The crowd exploded into cheers, the chant breaking out once more. "MAGA! MAGA! MAGA!" Trump raised his hands, letting the energy surge. The liberal media thought they had won. They thought they had humiliated him, exposed him, but in reality, they had just handed him another victory. And as the rally raged on, it became clear. No ambush, no smear campaign, no petty attack would stop his momentum. Because Donald Trump wasn't just fighting for himself, he was fighting for America. The roar of the crowd thundered through the Michigan stadium, shaking the very ground beneath them. Trump basked in the energy, his eyes scanning the sea of supporters who had shown up in droves despite the media's latest smear campaign. If James Carter and the liberal elites thought they could weaken his movement, they had seriously miscalculated. Trump raised a hand, signaling for silence. The crowd hushed just enough for him to continue. "You know," he said, shaking his head, "I've been dealing with these dishonest people for a long time, a very long time, and every time they think they've got me, every time they say, 'This is it, we've finally got Trump,' what happens?" The crowd erupted in unison. "You win!" Trump grinned. "That's right, we win because the American people are smart. They see through the nonsense, they see through the lies. And let me tell you folks, this last one was a real beauty." The crowd laughed as Trump mimicked Carter's smug voice. "Mr. Trump, is your marriage falling apart? Are you hiding something?" Trump rolled his eyes and the audience booed. "These people are more obsessed with my personal life than they are with Biden's failures. It's disgusting." A man near the front row yelled, "Tell them, Trump!" Trump pointed at him. "Oh, I will! You better believe it!" He turned back to the audience, his tone growing serious. "The truth is, they're not just after tea. No. This is about all of us. This is about trying to silence anyone who stands up for America. They don't just want to destroy Trump. They want to destroy this movement. They want to destroy you." The crowd roared in response, fists pumping in the air. "They hate the fact that we love this country," Trump continued. "They hate the fact that we believe in freedom, in borders, in law and order. And because they have nothing else, no solutions, no real leadership, they resort to gossip, lies, and distractions." Trump leaned on the podium, lowering his voice slightly. "But you know what they didn't expect?" He paused, letting the tension build. "They didn't expect us to fight back." The stadium erupted again. Trump chuckled, shaking his head. "And let me tell you folks, we're just getting started." He shifted gears, turning the focus back on the real issues. "While they waste time talking about my marriage, our country is falling apart. Have you seen what's happening at the border? Have you seen the crime in our cities? Have you seen how much you're paying for groceries? For gas?" The audience responded with resounding boos, their frustration evident. "They don't care." "About that," Trump said, his voice rising. "They care about keeping their power. They care about keeping their corruption covered up. And that's why, ladies and gentlemen, we need to take our country back." The stadium exploded with cheers, chants of "Trump, Trump, Trump," echoing across the night. As the rally continued, Trump outlined his vision, his plans to restore America's strength, to fix the economy, to protect the border, to bring back law and order. And with each promise, the crowd's energy soared. By the time he wrapped up his speech, the media's hit job was a distant memory. The people weren't talking about James Carter's ambush. They weren't discussing rumors about Trump's marriage. They were talking about taking back their country. Backstage, Mark Reynolds was scrolling through Twitter, a smirk on his face. He turned to Trump as he stepped off the stage. "Sir, it worked. The rally was a home run. Even the liberal networks are covering it, and not in the way they wanted." Trump took a sip of water, wiping his brow with a handkerchief. "Of course. It worked. These people are predictable." Mark nodded. "Carter tried to make it about your marriage, but you made it about America." Trump smirked. "Exactly. And that's why they'll never win." Meanwhile, in a quiet newsroom, James Carter sat at his desk, watching the rally footage with a sinking feeling in his stomach. He had thought he had scored a major victory, that he had embarrassed Trump on live TV. Instead, he had just handed him another rallying cry. Trump was more powerful than ever, and the media had once again played. James Carter sat in the dimly lit newsroom, his face illuminated by the glow of his computer screen. The rally footage was everywhere, blasting on social media, headlining every major news outlet. He clicked through the trending topics, his jaw tightening as he saw them. Trump won again. Fake news fails. MAGA still strong. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. He had planned the ambush for weeks, meticulously crafting the perfect question, timing the reveal for maximum impact. His producers had been giddy with anticipation, convinced they were about to deliver a crushing blow to Trump's credibility. But instead, Trump had done what he always did, flipped the attack into a rallying cry. Carter clenched his fists. As he watched the rally highlights playing on loop, Trump had taken the bait and then used it to fire up his supporters even more. Unbelievable, Carter muttered under his breath. A junior producer hesitated before approaching him. James? The network wants a follow-up segment. Carter looked up, irritated. On what? On Trump's reaction. They want to frame it as Trump's outburst raises questions about his stability. Carter rubbed his temples. They won't buy it. His supporters don't care about that angle. If anything, they'll just rally behind him more. The producer shifted uncomfortably. Well, the executives want us to run with it anyway. Carter sighed, leaning back in his chair. Fine, let's put something together. But deep down, he knew it wouldn't work. He had played his best card, and Trump had turned it into another victory lap. Meanwhile, at Mar-a-Lago, Trump sat in his office, flipping through the latest headlines with a satisfied grin. Mark Reynolds sat across from him, phone in hand. Sir, the rally numbers are massive. We've gained tens of thousands of new small-dollar donors in just the last 12 hours. Your base is more energized than ever. Trump smirked. Of course they are. The media just gave us a gift. He leaned back, folding his hands behind his head. They never learn, do they? Mark chuckled. No, sir. They don't. Trump tapped his fingers on the desk. Let's hit them again. I want an interview with a friendly outlet. Let's talk about the issues. The economy, the border, inflation. Let them see the contrast between real leadership and the circus act they've got in the White House. Mark nodded. I'll set it up. Trump stood up, glancing out the window. James Carter thought he had me. He thought he was the one pulling the strings. He turned back with a grin. But the truth is, he was just another pawn in the game. Mark smirked. And you just played him perfectly. Trump chuckled. Like always. As the media scrambled to regain control of the narrative, Trump's momentum only grew stronger. The people weren't buying the smear campaigns anymore. They saw what was happening. They saw the lies, the desperation. And as 2024 loomed closer, one thing became crystal clear. The liberal media had underestimated Trump again. And this time, it might cost them everything. As the days passed, the fallout from the interview continued to dominate headlines. Liberal networks did their best to spin Trump's reaction as an unhinged meltdown, but it wasn't landing the way they hoped. In fact, their narrative was backfiring. Polls began rolling in, and the numbers told a different story. Trump's favorability among Republican voters had surged, with independents showing increased support as well. Even some moderate Democrats were questioning whether the media had crossed the line. At Mar-a-Lago, Trump's inner circle gathered to analyze the impact. Mark Reynolds walked in, holding a tablet with the latest data. Sir, you're not going to believe this, Mark said, shaking his head. The clip of you shutting down Carter has over 50 million views across platforms. Engagement is through the roof. Trump grinned. I told you, people love seeing me put these clowns in their place. Mark nodded. It gets better. Fundraising. Numbers have skyrocketed. Small-dollar donations are breaking records. And get this, our internal polling shows that even in swing states, voters are getting fed up with media attacks. Trump leaned forward, eyes gleaming. So what's our next move? Mark hesitated for a moment. We could let this ride out a little longer. Let them dig their own grave. Carter is already trying to backpedal. He's been on multiple networks trying to explain himself, but it's not working. Trump smirked. Of course it's not. He thought he was setting me up, but now he's the one on the ropes. Mark tapped the tablet screen. That's why we strike now. We schedule another major rally, but this time, we expand the message beyond just the media's bias. We tie it back to Biden's failures, the economy, the border crisis, everything voters actually care about. Trump nodded. Good. Let's do it. And make sure we hammer the message that the media isn't just attacking me. They're attacking the American people. As Mark made the necessary calls, Trump turned on the television. Sure enough, James Carter was on another primetime show, looking noticeably rattled. "Look," Carter was saying, his usual confidence gone. "This isn't about attacking Trump personally. It's about accountability. The American people deserve transparency." The anchor, clearly trying to salvage the situation, nodded along. "But do you think the reaction from Trump supporters suggests this attack may have backfired?" Carter sighed, shifting uncomfortably. I wouldn't call it an attack. It was a fair question." Trump chuckled. He's squirming. The phone on his desk buzzed. It was a text from Melania. "They always fail. Stay focused." Trump smiled. His wife knew better than anyone how these media games played out. And she was right. This was just another failed hit job, another desperate attempt to take him down. The rally was set for the following week, and when the day arrived, the turnout was even bigger than expected. The arena was packed, and tens of thousands more gathered outside. The energy was electric. Trump took the stage, shaking his head in mock disbelief. "Wow," he said, surveying the crowd. "Look at this. Absolutely incredible. But you know, folks, the media says I'm losing support." The crowd erupted into laughter. "They spent the last week trying to tell you how bad I looked, how out of control I was." Trump leaned into the microphone, lowering his voice. "And yet, here we are, bigger, stronger, louder than ever." Chants of "Trump, Trump, Trump" filled the air. Trump pointed to the cameras. "You see that? That's what they're afraid of. Not me, not my marriage, not anything they say on their fake news networks. They're afraid of you. They're afraid of the people." The crowd roared in agreement. "And let me tell you something," Trump continued. "We're not stopping. We're going to take this energy straight to November, straight into the White House, and we are going to save America." The stadium shook with applause, and at that moment, it was clear. The media's attempt to weaken Trump had only made him stronger. James Carter, watching from a studio, rubbed his temples in frustration. He had thought he was the one playing chess. But in the end, Trump had been 5 moves ahead all along.